Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Fly With Us podcast. This podcast is bringing the art of conversation, self love, self care, mental health care and protection, life lessons, love lessons, and everything in between. Today, we're going to talk about the real you. I'm your girl, Lady Bounce.
And I am Picket Fence. Today's Mindfulness Minute is called Tell the Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Can you go through an entire day telling the truth and only the truth? Telling the truth, like thinking positive thoughts, is a skill that requires lots of practice. People tell little white lies, half truths, or useful falsehoods for all kinds of reasons: to evade blame, to deceive, deny reality, or to feel better about themselves. In some instances, a little white lie might be motivated by a desire to prevent someone from being hurt. For example, you know that a coworker is about to be fired, but when they ask you if you've heard anything about the possible termination, you tell them no. It takes more effort to think about how to answer him truthfully and still not hurt his feelings than just to tell a lie. But if you live and work from a place of truth, others will trust your word and will appreciate your honesty. Word up.
Word. That was a whole word in itself because, I have really strong feelings centered around telling the truth. I'm really big on telling the truth when I'm talking to people. Now, what you mentioned in your mindfulness minute, I have done that, like the little white lies, those little, quote unquote, harmless lies that you tell.
Mhm.
And I really try not to engage in those too often because I've learned about myself that I talk too much and I talk way too fast to remember what I say. So for me, it's much easier to go through life telling the truth about everything because a lie is too hard to remember. And you got to tell a lie on top of that lie to cover that lie, and
Mhm.
before you know it, you don't even know what the original lie was because you spun the tale, so far. And then if something should happen and the real truth comes out and you've told all of these lies, you can't undo that. And then people don't trust you anymore, because of that. So just like the end of your mindfulness minute said, you know, it really does destroy the trust forever because then people ask, well, were you lying then or are you lying now? And it makes it hard for them to trust anything that comes out of your mouth after that. So
Mhm.
word up. That was a whole word.
Word up. So let's get into it. What spawned this? You came up with this topic. So what spawned this subject that we're talking about today?
Because I it came out of a situation that I was dealing with a student, as a matter of fact. And I told the student I'd like to see who you really are. I feel like when I see you, I'm seeing your representative. That
Mhm.
I'm not seeing the real you and the you that you could become. And it kind of took him a minute to get it, and then I had to go into a deeper explanation of what I meant by that. So then I came home, of course, as always, and I talked to you about it. And I was like, there's a lot of people walking around not being authentic, which we've done a show before about authenticity and how you owe the world authenticity, how you owe yourself authenticity. To be who you are all the time at all times is something that we all deserve. And we all deserve to be accepted for who we really are. So, in the particular case of this student, he's at school acting less than what he should be because he's trying to fit in to a mold that he's not meant to fit into. So it was
Mhm.
really about that. And then I got to thinking about it on a deeper level. How many times have you been out in public and you yourself were not yourself? You were your representative. You were, trying to fit into the mold either of the situation or the people you are around. And that's, to me, it's like it's being fake. Well, maybe not being fake, maybe that's not the word. But if you feel like you have to turn off certain facets of your personality to be in certain spaces, then maybe those aren't spaces that you're meant to be in.
Hmm. That's deep. I mean, I've also heard the opposite of that, that you have to act a certain way around different individuals. I forget what the
Mm.
word for it is, but basically you have to speak the language of the native company that you're in.
Right.
But that's not exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about your representative, and break down what that is to people.
Well, it's quite simply, it's the you that you put on display, or the you that you want people to see, which is not always necessarily reflective of who you really truly are. So, like you were saying, in certain spaces, you may have to act a certain way, or, like you said, speak the language of the natives. But even with speaking the language of the natives, you can still be who you are in that space. So when I go places, I am goofy, I am silly, I am, personable. I'm not, a stuck up, has to diddy kind of person. So when you meet me. You are meeting me. You're not meeting my representative. And the um the kind of messed up part about that is that sometimes, I'm always second guessing, like, did I give them too much of my personality, or should I have, turned down, or toned down. And it's a balance, and like it's in anything else, there's a balance. You have to maintain a balance. But for example, when I go in certain circles, for, like an educator conference or something, I don't know how to not be smart. I don't know how to not, you know show off my, not necessarily show off, that's a bad word, but I don't know how to not be smart. And then looking at some of my coworkers, because we have to take 50 hours of professional development on our own each year. Well, typically I go way over that. Last year I did over 1,000 hours of professional development on my own, because this was knowledge that I wanted to have. So I went and got it. So some of my coworkers are kind of joking around, like, "Oh, you're such an overachiever." And I'm like, I don't know how to not be an overachiever, if that's what you call it. And then it kind of felt like like they were weaponizing my intellect, or like
Mm.
using it against me. So then I felt bad, like, okay, well, maybe I don't tell people about all my degrees, or all my diplomas, or my certificates. Maybe I do, hold that back, because I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, or I don't want to make anybody feel like they should be doing what I'm doing, or, stuff like that. So you end up toning down, and then you feel bad about it, because you're like, well, why should I tone down? Maybe you should step up. Or, why should I change this part about my personality to make you happy, or to make you comfortable, when all that does is upset me in the long run? So, in terms of self care, if I'm not being who I truly am, then I'm not happy. And I owe myself happiness before I owe happiness to anybody else. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean like you go out and you're around people and you're, a jerk on purpose, or you try to be a jerk, or you try to be hurtful. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, if you feel like you have to turn off parts of you which are going to make you unhappy in the end, then that's not good self-care. That's not taking
Mhm.
care of your mental or your happiness. Your own happiness is just as important as anybody else's happiness.
I agree. I definitely agree, and I think one of the problems may be is that a lot of people don't know who they are.
Mm.
They haven't taken the time to do that self exploring and self work to really figure out who they are, especially when it comes to the youth, as the older generation calls them, the youth. They're back to the same thing that we always talk about. So much programming out there that may not be conducive to helping them discover who they really are. We're always telling people, as a whole, we're telling people this is the way you be, this is the way to think, this is the way to look, this is what good music is. And a lot of times it's not good music, it's just that it's played so much you think it may be good music. Or the how we're displayed, especially when it comes to the African American community, how we're displayed um, on TV and movies and things of that nature, um, that we start thinking in ourselves like, yo, this is the way we should be. and that's not maybe the case. And I think that, like we said before, that we need some type of counter programming out here to say, okay, we're not a monolith. You're free to really dive into yourself. I think that for education, we're always talking about things to improve education. I think that's one of the things that we need to do is start very early with two things: self-care and emotional intelligence as part of
Yes.
the education system. Those both of those have to be in there. We can keep reading about history of dead people hundreds of years ago, um, and learning about things that we'll never use as adults, or we could start teaching things that will last and help you throughout your life. And I think
I
an
agree
emotional intelligence,
100%.
yeah, and emotional intelligence is one of those tools that we can use to really start doing that self discovery. Um, and especially, like I said, and as far as the African American community, we say it a lot of times, like unapologetically black, but are we really tapping into what that is? Because it seems like the loudest people you hear saying that are the most ghetto people and the most ignorant people.
Hmm.
And I don't think that that's the true message is coming across the way it should, because we have to really tap into what that is to be authentically us. And it's going to be an individual case because, like I said, we're not a monolith. But I think that so few of us really know our history and culture and our greatness that that's going to be a very hard battle.
Mm. So let me ask you, have you ever been in spaces where you felt like you couldn't be who you are? Or you felt like you had to put on a mask, so to speak?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say a mass, but there's been a lot of spaces where I felt really uncomfortable, really, really uncomfortable. And that's, like I said, that started in my youth. I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood, but I went to a predominantly white school, and
Mm.
and these kids weren't set up to be accepting to everyone. They weren't taught that acceptance of everyone. And it wasn't like they were willing to learn culture and learn things about them. They have their world, and you have to adjust and adapt and live in their world. So that I think that that was one of the things that made me so uh, not liking school growing up. I hated school as a kid. Like probably like after third or fourth grade, I really just like, was one of those kids that I was just quiet in school. Just let me get through this day and get back home. And I always say that
Mm.
I don't think that I really started learning anything until I got to college. And at that point, a lot of stuff was kind of put you way behind. Like you were doing a webinar the other day, and I heard little pieces of it, and I heard a guy that said something that sounded exactly like me. Like he was saying that when he got to college, he didn't even know how to write a paper. And I had that same experience, that I didn't know how to write a paper, formation, format, type settings, in that those things I didn't know how to properly do. And I latched on when I got to college because, at this time I did have a chance to go to a predominantly black school. I went to HBCU for my first year and a half of college. And, and that was one of the classes I still didn't like a lot of the classes, but that English class, I had a great teacher, and she was like, okay, this is how you do it. And that was a big boost. Cause I mean, being in that uncomfortable space, it makes you not acceptable to learning, because as we've seen for years, especially when it comes to testing, testing can be very bias, especially when it comes to people of persons of color and persons of regions of that they come from.
Mm-hmm.
This Western world is set up to you follow this and this is it. I mean, it's the same reason why most people are Christians, because they hammered it in us, and you're dying if you don't get this, and force this into this thing. So that's my next thing that is kind of that I would think of that makes it hard to show up as you, because we've been disconnected from our spirituality, and that is something that helps you develop you authentically when you're firm in that. And for the last few thousand years, we've been told that this is what it is. But what happened to the thousands and thousands, almost hundreds of thousands of years before this became what it was? And I think that so those things, emotional intelligence, self-care, and a connectivity to your true history.
I like that. And I think if we have more of a connection, to those things, that we would find it a lot easier to be in spaces and be ourselves. And we would also be more accepted in those spaces. Because what I have found, which is something that we talk about a lot, when non-African Americans get a hold to hip hop music or rap music, it seems like they like the ghettoist or the trashiest of artists that put out the trashiest of music, and they listen to that and they start to take on some of the persona and the bravado that they hear in the lyrics, and
Hmm.
then they kind of judge all black people based on that. And we're not all like that. I'm not like that at
Yeah.
all. I've been well spoken my whole life. Can I code switch? Absolutely. Do I? Yes, because I have to. But I don't know how to not be who I am. I don't know how to not be what I've been raised, or, what I've been cultivated to be, what I've cultivated myself to be. I am intelligent. I am nice looking. I am multi talented. But I'm also goofy and funny and fun to be around. And people like me and people like to be around me. So I don't feel like I owe it to anybody to pretend to be something that I'm not, either for likes or for dislikes, for that matter. I just don't. I feel like that it takes too much work to try to be all of these different people for all of these different people. And I just don't want to work that hard on a daily basis. And then at the end of the day, I feel so depleted because I've worked so hard to wear so many different faces around certain people. Nobody deserves to live a life like that. So we need to be more connected, I think, not just as people of color, but as people in general, and realize that we're all
Hmm.
in this life, in this world together. And so we need to take it easy on ourselves, for one, and then take it easy on others, and not make somebody be around you that has to be fake, or they have to switch who they are in order to exist in your world. Like, that's not fair. It's like, you get to be whoever you are, whoever you want to be, and you expect people to adjust and adapt to just how you are. That's just how you are. But you're not willing to do the same when you interact with others. And that's not cool. Like,
Hmm.
I've worked with people like that, where, nasty, contentious, crotchety all day long. But the second you give them a dose of that back, then they play victim. Well, what did I do to you? Or why are you talking to me like that? I'm talking to
Right.
you the way you talk to me most of the time. And I find that when that happens, when I give it back, because that's not my norm, people really are kind of taking it back, like, well, what did I do to you? And I'm like, I'm just giving
Hmm.
you back some of that same energy, as they say. That's everybody's new phrase. So I'm giving back that same energy that I'm getting. And if you
Hmm.
notice that if somebody gives you back the energy that you've been giving out and you don't like how it feels, then maybe you should change the energy that you give out.
Definitely.
So if you're always giving, if you're always giving out good energy, you're going to get good energy in return.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And there are going to be times that everybody's going to have, bad situations. But if you're putting out a lot more positive, then you're going to get that back. And if you're getting the negative from just certain people, then you may consider separating or distancing yourself from those people as much as possible. Of course, you can't always uh, distance yourself from your coworkers and things like that, but limit the time that you're involved with them.
Mm. So then let me ask you this. Does society really want us to be our authentic selves?
No, it doesn't at all. It's trying to make you make everybody cookie cutter. That's why we have this intentional programming out there, so that you think and do, just like they want you to go to school, get in debt, get a basic job after you spent all this time and money in school, to keep you enslaved to their system.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, they definitely don't want you to be your authentic self. We will have a lot more happier and a lot more wealthier people if everybody really stuck to finding their authentic selves and authentic ways of taking care of themselves and providing for themselves. So no, definitely they don't want you to be your authentic self. So that leads me into our self-care assignment this week. What we're going to do is we're going to make two lists. We're going to make a list of the things that you love about yourself and a list of the things you don't like about yourself. Then we're going to tear that list in half and burn the things you don't like about yourself. And we're going to take every day and focus on the things you do like about yourself. Practice each one of those things as often as possible every day and read that list every day. These are the things that I love about myself, and nobody's going to F with it. I love it, and this is what I'm going to focus on. Word up.
I like that. I think that that's a dope self-care assignment. Like because I say that a lot to, like, one of the self assignments we had, on our social media platforms was look at yourself in the mirror naked from head to toe and compliment every inch of your body. Flaws and all, love it all. You got that extra
Hmm.
roll, that was a good meal that put that roll there, or you got a dimple here or, a scar there. Love every part of you, because if you love in every part of you, then it does make it easier to be your real authentic self when you're out in public, because you've embraced all the parts that make you you, physically, mentally, and
Hmm.
emotionally, and you're happy with it. And so if you're happy with it, you have no choice but to be that way all the time and then spread it. And maybe that will become infectious. So the next person that you're around feels like it's okay for them to be their authentic self as well, because they're watching you do it.
And it's also going to be infectious to yourself because, like I said, you're going to take that bad list and burn it, get rid of it. It doesn't exist anymore. And you're going to focus on those things you do like. And I'm sure that a lot of those things that you like about yourself, if you focus on them, it will correct the things that you don't like. They really won't exist. We're going to symbolically get rid of them by burning that. And then we're going to focus on the good so that it replaces all those bad things. Those things won't even be there anymore because you're focusing on so much of this good in you that you don't have time for the bad anymore.
I like
Word up.
it.
Word. Now, before we get out of here, we got to get into my favorite part of the show. Doom, 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 doom. Brain science, 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 science.
All right, so we've been talking about being real and being authentic. So now I'm going to talk to you about the impact of authenticity on your mental, emotional, and physical health. Do you ever feel like you're doing all the right things in life and on paper your life is pretty good? but inside you feel this nagging feeling of void or emptiness. Maybe you have a partner, kids, a great job, and on the outside you should be happy. But inside you can't seem to muster up enough positive thinking to feel really happy about your life. Then you go around thinking, what's wrong with me? Why am I so unhappy? Why do I stare at the person's life on Instagram and feel like my life isn't good enough? If you're in your 40s, and you may call this a midlife crisis, but experts will call this more of an authenticity crisis. And in the era we live in, this authenticity crisis is coming at younger ages and showing up as depression, anxiety, and emotional deregulation. So, what does it mean to be authentic? Genuine, original, real, actual, true. These are all definitions of authentic. But what does it really mean to be an authentic person living an authentic life? Authentic, Authenticity starts from within, and authentic people know themselves, are able to listen to their inner voice, can understand the complexities of their feelings, and are able to face up to the truth about themselves, no matter how unpleasant they might find it. In contrast, people who are alienated from themselves fail to go through with their intuitions. They get confused about their emotions and make poor decisions for themselves instead of doing what they think will please others. So, the number one way that your authenticity gets derailed is when one does not trust their own inner knowing and instead relies upon others and the outside world to determine who they should be. So, how does that happen? That happens when you're watching reality TV shows or that you think are real and you think that you should be living like those people live when that's not real life in the first place. So, don't let
Mhm.
your authenticity get derailed. So, living authentically by knowing yourself, being able to understand and accept and express yourself and your emotions, follow your own intuition, and trust yourself is living authentically all the time. So, when you are understanding yourself, when you are listening to that inner voice, people who live more authentically, sorry, are prone to greater psychological well-being, greater mental health, and that generally equates to a greater physical health too. That means when you feel good mentally, you do things that make your body feel good. When your body feels good, it increases your mental feeling good, right? So when one cannot live from this true place of authenticity, then stress is created in our minds and our bodies. And this stress may be subconscious at first, but eventually it builds over time and it results in mental and physical imbalances that can show up as anxiety, depression, chronic anger, fatigue, stomach disturbances, and chronic illnesses. So be authentic. Take care of your health physically, mentally, on the inside, right? So, how does authenticity affect your family connections? Living in a family where parents are not authentic to be who they truly are can create a lot of stress in a family system. Parents who are not living through their best self, whether it is expressed as being a people pleaser or stuck in a job they hate, are often unhappy deep down as they are living a life they think they should be as opposed to the life that they want to live.
Mm.
Your kids can see it too. Your kids know when you're not being real. We can't tell our kids to be real and take care of themselves if we're not being real and taking care of ourselves.
Mhm.
So become aware of who you are, your learned behaviors. And if you have learned behaviors that you don't like, that make you uncomfortable, that cause you to not live your best self, then you need to take the steps necessary to get rid of those learned behaviors that do not serve you well.
Word up. Word
Word
up.
up.
That's dope. I love that. I think that that is a perfect conclusion to what we've been talking about. You heard?
I think so.
Mm.
That like the song, I'm living my best life. Instead of living your best life, live your best self. And I
Mhm.
think if you're living your best self, you can't help but to live your best life because you're already putting your best self out there, which means the energy you put out, it is the energy you get back. So you have no choice but to live your best life when you're living your authentic life.
I heard that. I heard that. Well, 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 yo, that's our show for this week. You know, you can find us wherever you find your favorite podcast. But please, please, please go to the Facebook page, like and follow us on Facebook, and do those daily self care assignments. Make sure you share them with your friends and your family. Comment on those self care assignments. Let us know if you're doing them. Let us know if they're working for you. Or if you just love seeing something positive in your feed, just tell us that. We're going to keep on keeping on. It's your boy Picket Fence.
I'm your girl, Lady Bounce.
We out of here. Peace.
Peace.